Hey folks, just a quick note before we get started. In the FTC story, I say the wrong number of funeral homes that the FTC caught. The number is 38. All right, let's get to it. Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, December 20th, 2024. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that our subscription holiday special is coming to an end. We have 3 magazines that we produce. Well, 2 magazines and a newsletter: American Cemetery and Cremation, American Funeral Director, and Funeral Service Insider. American Cemetery and Cremation and American Funeral Director are each available for $1 an issue. That's $12 for the first year. And Funeral Service Insider is available for $99 for the first year. And that is 48 issues. I write every week new stuff. Every week we have a newsletter where I write stuff that I don't think anyone else is really working on or really writing. I try to be very quick about that kind of thing. I also, as you know from this show, put out In Case You Missed It stories with some regularity, as well as commentary during the week and this video and some of the podcasts. So there is plenty worth seeing over at Kates-Boylston.com/Funeral Service Insider. Links to everything, including the holiday specials, are in the notes. First up, for I think the second Thursday in a row, I got a little note this morning from my friends at Barington Capital, who elaborated on their plans to try and take over the Matthews International Board of Directors. In another email blast that came out from the company, they named the 3 directors that they intend to put forward to be accepted onto the Matthews board at their upcoming Investors Day. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a date that I can find. It's generally the second week in February. I had seen something in April, so as soon as I get a date, I'll share it with you. I didn't have any success in finding one. But the directors that are proposed are Anna Amacarella, who is currently the CEO of Ethos Energy; Chan Galbato, who is currently the CEO of Cerebus Operations; and James Midiratonda, who is currently the chairman of Barington Capital Group. He has been the most vocal of the activist investors in trying to get Matthews to change the way they are doing business. He got more aggressive, I believe, in the more recent letters when he said that he argued that Matthews' battery projects are only valuable to Tesla and to no one else. And that hasn't been Matthews' story for the last year or so. And that really changes things and makes one wonder whether this is just an up and down vote on the CEO of Matthews, or if it does have to do with this energy division, which, has really kind of been portrayed as, the next big thing for Matthews. What everybody wants, what the investors want, is more focus on memorialization. The other thing that they want to do is they want to change the board's structure. The board right now is a classified board, meaning that not all board members come up at the same time. And he wants to switch it to a declassified board, which means every board member gets elected all together. It makes it more vulnerable to activist investors and I guess regular investors coming in and making sweeping changes on the board. It's an interesting move because it really does try to re-empower the investors. The concerns that Barington has raised is that so many of the current board of directors has been on for a long time that they're more interested in preserving the board than in driving the company. That's the accusation. The board denies this. And in Matthews' letter, it said that it has been trying to work with Midiratonda with little success. So it seems like there is an impasse, and that it does have more to do with the energy sector than had been previously reported. I've been reporting mostly on concerns about manufacturing, but the energy sector is a different question altogether, because if it's the energy sector, then it's a big bet on whether Matthews really is tied exclusively to Tesla, or if this energy storage product that they have is something that is more widely usable. So we'll find out all of that in the coming months, and I will continue to report on it as things develop. So this time last year, there was all sorts of issues with the FTC as they prepared to change the funeral rule to require that funeral homes put their GPLs online. And in early 2024, they made a press release saying that they'd call 250 funeral homes out of the 21 or so thousand in the country, and that 36 of them had failed a cold call on supplying price information on demand. We have reported on this kind of extensively, and it's easy to catch up. The shortest version is that it is rarely the information that it's a bad actor. Usually when a funeral home doesn't call someone back, it's literally a lost note. However, that's becoming less and less of an excuse. And one of the things that we've had a couple times so far this year at Kates-Boylston is we've done webinars, and one of them is, get a management system that allows you to track what calls have been returned and what calls aren't. And of course, putting all of your prices online is almost something certainly that's going to happen. It just makes more sense anyway, especially from the perspective of consumers. The other thing that I've done a lot this year is I've reported, and actually really since I've gotten here, it seems like every 2 or 3 months, someone starts a new company because they had a funeral and they're like, well, I went to book my mom's funeral online. I found out that funerals are the only things that don't have an online compatibility, so I made this company. Actually, in early 2025, I'm going to speak with the folks from Cadence. I've already done a brief interview in anticipation of a webinar that they'll be holding, but they have a very similar story where being buried by, pardon the pun, by all of the responsibilities of having a funeral just makes people invent computer programs to solve those problems. So that is part one of my story. Part two of my story is this week, 2 more funeral homes in Maine were asked about their inclusion on this list for failure to answer a phone call quickly enough almost a year ago. And that is unfortunate. So back in November, the FTC said, I don't think we've made a big enough deal about these 250 phone calls, these 36 funeral homes that failed this test. We're going to put this back out here, and we're going to provide more information about how awful this process is. I don't think it's outrageous or even conspiratorial to say that I know there are several government agencies who are trying to lock down things that they want to get done before the new president takes office in 2025. This is kind of starting to smack of that now. It's just at some point you have to just make the decision. The FTC continues to provide evidence that no one needs or wants. No one believes that they're still dithering over whether or not it makes sense to add a digital aspect to the funeral rule. And I think mainly their concern is about how the details will work, because as they discovered when they made the funeral rule changes last time, there are always details that you didn't consider, and once you put the law in place, these details are harder to work out than they are beforehand. So I think they're just trying to shore up, community outrage so that it makes it easier on them to pass this law. I can't imagine why they keep hitting the same note and not making a decision. I'm sure they know. I'm sure people smarter than me know. If you're one of those people who are smarter than me, there are a lot of people who are smarter than me, but if you're one of the people who are smarter than me and also knows what is going on with the FTC's continuing hounding over this, I'd love your input. You can contact me through the show notes. One of my favorite kinds of stories to cover are stories that have suggestions that funeral directors can use to improve their businesses without having to make a huge investment. Little tactical things that can be done. And, in this era of moving toward event spaces, I was really impressed by one gentleman's business model when I did a story on him last year. His name is Kelly Roberts, and he is not a funeral director, but he is the owner of Roberts Family Life Celebration Home in Forest Lake Life Celebration Home in Forest Lake, Minnesota. And he had this really interesting approach to selling celebrations, which was he rented a small office in town and down in Minneapolis and hired a salesperson. And this salesperson's job was to go and to work with local golf courses and restaurants and essentially to be an event planner and booker for these other local businesses when it came to funerals. So people who were interested in having really, special funeral celebrations, really personalized celebrations of life, were able to come to them and get it done. And the most recent story is about a gentleman named Jeff Johnson, who put together what he's calling, and he's still alive, Jeff is still with us, put together what he's calling Jeff Johnson's Awesome Funeral Party. And it has, gift bags, and he's doing it now. He's planning it now. He's telling everybody it now. He's not getting people looking forward to him dying, but he's trying to get people to be okay with a celebration. So many of us say, oh, we just want a party, but no one feels like planning a party when their mom dies. But what if the party has already been planned and by your mom or your dad or whomever, and all you have to do is attend and maybe pay for it if you're the next of kin or if you're the executor or whatever. So I really loved this story, and I just wanted to share that he's still doing well, because it was always, I do a lot of brand new business stories. Like, I have this idea and I just started it, and it's always dicey. Like, I like to give them the benefit of the doubt and let them say, this is what my business is going to do. And then if it's successful, then I can celebrate it. But I don't want to not recognize that they're trying, because in times when funeral home businesses are, sometimes struggling to find new ways to drive revenue, someone who's willing to take a chance, I think, should get the attention. And that's one of the things we like to do here in Funeral Service Insider. And I wanted to just celebrate, Kelly Roberts's victory here. There was a nice story in the paper on him, and it listed a bunch of the different things he's done for families, or has had done for families. There is a link in the show notes, but that isn't the only reason I brought it up. The main reason I brought it up is because I know he's not the only one doing this. I just don't know who else is. And so what I would like to start to do, and I'll ask for this occasionally over the next year, is if you have a special funeral for someone and you want to tell me about it, I want to hear about it and I want to share it. I want to find a way to let other funeral directors know that you did this thing and that it worked out, or did it work out, and why or why not. And so please, if you have something that you think other funeral directors need to hear, send it to me. let's talk. Let's do a story on whatever fun, interesting, quirky, or imaginative thing you have done to help families have better funerals. And along those same celebration lines, a new funeral home is set to open early next year in Columbus, Ohio. It is called Evergreen Funeral, Cremation, and Reception. And it is hoping to be the first funeral home in Ohio, according to the story, link in the show notes, that has its own liquor license. So it will be an event center with a liquor license. And the fact that it's the first one, it would be the first one in Ohio, if that is true, is really interesting, because I'm surprised that if it's legal in Ohio, more funeral homes haven't taken advantage of this. Maybe, it's expensive. I know getting a liquor license is expensive, and then you have to endure, a bunch of different inspections. There are insurance issues, but since he's starting this business from scratch anyway, it makes sense for him to build an event center. And hopefully early next year, we'll have a story on someone in Mississippi who's done something very similar, opened an event center that does funerals and weddings. It's increasingly common because filling these event centers isn't always as easy as it maybe was in the 80s, because what's happening in the wedding industry isn't radically different from what's happening in the funeral industry, where people are sometimes trying to get away from, the big to do at a place and trying to find a way to do something interesting, and to see these businesses that are like walking that line and trying to find which approach makes the most sense for them is just worth following up on. So there's a link to the story in the show notes, and I'll keep you informed. And when this business is open, maybe we'll get a story on them as well. And that will do it for In Case You Missed It this week. In Case You Missed It is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written, edited, and videoed by me, Tony Russo. Please subscribe wherever you're listening now. If you are listening on your computer or you are watching on YouTube, that's easy. You just hit the little bell and you're subscribed, and every time we put something out, you'll get notified, which is interesting because we put more out on YouTube than just my dumb face. We have different seminars and webinars that we post for people to watch, and we have a really interesting back catalog where there are still webinars with relevant information that might just be, a year or two old. So you should definitely check out our YouTube page. But if you are listening on your computer and would like to make sure you subscribe, just take out your phone. And if it's an iPhone, you go to the Apple Podcasts, and in Apple Podcasts, you just type Funeral Service Insider. We'll come up. That's our name. And right there, it'll give you the opportunity to follow us. If you have an Android phone, there are a couple different podcatchers you might have. Many people use Spotify. We are on Spotify. So you can do the same thing. Just take out your phone, go to Spotify, type in Funeral Service Insider. We'll come up. You can follow us on Spotify as well. I've assured people that subscribing in the case of this podcast does not mean that there's a payment. So free subscription. There is no charge to subscribe to this show or to any of the podcasts that we're doing right now. And we would love it if you do. We see the subscriber numbers growing, and it's always exciting to see, how well. Thank you for listening to this, because if you're listening to this, the odds are, or watching this, thank you. The odds are that you do it many, if not most weeks. And I appreciate it. And I take seriously the fact that you expect it. And I try to deliver a good job, as best a job as I can, I guess is the way to put it. We have one more show. I will do a show next Friday, and that is going to be the 27th. I'm going to do probably a pretty short show because I'll be packing up to leave for the new year. And I hope you guys have a great new year and a great Christmas and great winter holidays if you celebrate other ones. I know my daughter's a big fan of the solstice, and that's coming up in the next couple days. And that will do it this week for In Case You Missed It.